Welcome and thanks for joining us today. We'll be talking about adapting a continuous performance review process. My name is Stacie Grasberger. I'm a manager with the Educe group. Today I'll be presenting with our partner, Hendrik. Hendrik, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Stacie. My name is Dr. Hendrik Thomas. I'm a senior product manager for Cornerstone, a company in e-learning and performance management. I've been with Cornerstone for close to 11 years. I've dealt with performance management system for the last 10 years, but now I've shifted over to the continuous performance management space, as well as continuous performance development. It's all about helping employees be in the career journey they love. On a side note, I also hold a PhD in data science. I'm very passionate about AI and ontologies, helping bring these technologies to the HR space so we can bring the support we want to give our employees to more employees to make it really inclusive so everyone can get the necessary support to grow in their career. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, today we're going to talk about making that adaptation to the performance review process and making it more continuous. What we've seen, I think, this year is that clients are looking to shift, but they really get overwhelmed, and they want to have more timely feedback, but they get overwhelmed around the timing and the change management to support that. What have you seen, and what do you see with your clients around how they're making this shift to continuous performance?
It's the idea of continuous performance management as an agile system to give you real-time feedback. It's very attractive. And today, it's not only because it's attractive, but almost like a necessity in order to survive in these challenging times with so many opportunities, but also risks you have to overcome. In order to make the shift over from performance management from a once-a-year conversation to this ongoing process, it's really in first understanding this less of a tool question, but more of a culture change. It's all about that you adapt this new way of providing and receiving feedback in an organization. You need to educate your people around that, making sure that people are aware what this change means and what the benefit of these changes are. To do that, the first step is always to get support from your leadership. There is really a top-down approach that people in the top really understand and embrace that and live this value for themselves so they can act as role models. Then it's really important to engage with the managers, because this is the biggest change for the manager who needs to spend time with their managers every month. They may be overwhelmed with the workload as their challenge in the moment. But it's really important to clarify the roles for them, making sure that the manager, by providing enough feedback on a regular basis, will also save time and get more value out of it, because it's a two-way conversation and they can address problems when they're small before they're big. So it's all about being able to do that. But in order to help managers get to that point, they need coaching and education, how to run these sessions and how to run them effectively and what the benefits are.
Perfect. I do agree, and I also think there's a business case to it as well that I think organizations consider. The fact that we talked in our first session about it takes 10 hours for a manager to do a performance review and prepare for one individual. So the cost savings and also the frustration of people, and then that dreaded year-end conversation of looking back instead of looking forward. I think there's some benefit there, especially from a business perspective, time savings. And also, again, looking forward with the strengths and helping to plan for their career, and also being able to be flexible and agile to make those business changes immediately, saving the money, saving money for the companies, saving time and effort that would have been wasted, trying to run down old goals or objectives that are no longer valid. So I think that's also another really good point that fits there. And we had talked about some of it in our last session. So definitely very valid.
That's a really good point you're picking up. So when you consider what you actually need to implement from a process to support this continuous drive for feedback, the first thing we actually always tell our clients, you have to have a very clear, transparent goal model, making sure that goals are set on a regular basis, they align with your business model, and you review them every time, maybe every quarter at the very least. And as you point out, a lot of the goals we set up in January are no longer relevant. They're completely out of this planet in the moment. And as a result, with a continuous process, you have a chance to regular review and go back to these goals. On the one hand side, making sure that you're tracking progress, but also just checking if the goal just is still relevant, or you maybe have to adjust to find new ones. And with the continuous performance management, this process becomes a lot easier because it's a regular cadence. The other thing you need to implement is a system of multi-directional feedback. Feedback is a real-time feedback system, but who's giving feedback? There are a number of different sources you have to capture. Obviously, the manager and employee have a very close relationship, but there are also peers, you can have surveys, development feedback, or just pulse surveys with other peers and stakeholders to give you a 360 view around the feedback of employee. So you're not limited to the perspective of one person, but actually collecting all that. And the manager's role is to digest this information and then have an educated discussion of the employee, what that means, what learnings you can draw from it. The other thing you shouldn't forget, you need a data-driven performance review system. The performance review at the end of the year is not going away. It's going to be supplemented by this continuous process. So you have regular conversations, you track all that. So by the end of the year, you have a complete picture, accurate, deep picture of the achievements and challenges of a person. So the actually performance review that helps you with compensation, bonus, and progression is still there. But the data quality is so much easier. It's be a lot faster to do, a lot more meaningful, much more useful, and a lot more accurate. But it's still a place because you, in the end, need to make decisions. Employees expect a decision and a fair adjustment for their compensation. But if you do that, you can base this on data, not just one single conversation. It's a lot more effective.
A lot of people don't know how to receive feedback. Maybe they think they know how to give it, but receiving it is a whole other ballgame. So having the opportunity to take some self-learning or self-directed learning and say, okay, what is it I need to take from this? It's not always one component. You know, we have the learn and do on the job. So maybe you take some component of the learning and then you practice it and then you do it in your job, and that's how you get better and you see results more quickly. So I love that you brought that up. I think that's the component that we lose sight of a lot, is that people don't know how to receive the feedback. They get nervous and they don't know what to do with it. So tying it to learning and having that opportunity. And I think it also comes back to the manager's more of a coach. They have the ability to coach and be alongside with the person in less of the adversarial across the table way. So especially in the virtual world that we're in now, it feels so much more collaborative, where you can have those conversations and they are coaching you. They're walking you through things, sometimes real time, real brand new situations we've never been through. So it's more of a coaching and supporting your team and giving them the tools. Again, it's process, it's also system, but it's the combination of the two with the philosophy and then that coaching that helps get them to the next level, or to take the feedback and, what do I do with it? How do I improve? So I love that aspect of it as well.
It's a very good point you bring up, this coaching, this open dialogue. It's a two-way situation. The fact is that when you're having these development conversation or performance, they can be quite emotional. And as we all know, emotions are very contagious. So if you have been nervous, the other person, or it can respond, and you're picking up maybe not the right emotion, but the energy. That's why if you have more ongoing conversation, you can train that. You can focus on smaller iterations rather than the big bang information. And that's the way it's a lot easier to digest this smaller level of feedback on a continuous level rather waiting for the big bang at the end of the year. We've done a lot of research on case studies, and there were a couple of best practice recommendations we drawn out of these success stories from our clients. And the first one is obviously, in order to have the benefit, you need to have regular conversations. And this is a big challenge for companies who are very busy and are just trying to survive on its own. That's why you need a lot of support from the admins. If they want to shift over to that culture, they need to monitor and actively support these ongoing conversations. Maybe even schedule them for the manager. Just keep them going in their regular cadence. This is a new thing for them. They haven't done that. Help them doing it. And then over time, you can monitor if this conversation happening. If not, just give them a slight nudge. The other thing is something you brought up earlier, development conversation. And currently, we have lots of these type of conversations, but in order to make it really effective, you need to be able to separate the nature of the conversation. Focus your energy. If there's something you want to review on goals, have a dedicated section. Just talk about goals. Or performance issues, performance. More importantly, if you want to talk about development, spend time, maybe now 45 minutes, and talk only about development. Don't talk about status updates, about your projects. Just focus on this particular topic and hone it down. This will give you attention and also the energy to actually dive deeper into that topic. That comes back to managers often very ill-equipped to even handle these type of difficult development conversations. They don't know how. Help them. Give them agendas, give them specific recommendation guidelines to help them prepare. Particularly younger managers who are just growing up in a role need that support in order to help their employees effectively going through that, and just how to structure a conversation. Sometimes it's just simple things that make their life a lot easier. The other thing is, and I brought that up earlier, it's really to empower the employee. The employee owns their career development. It's a long-term journey, and the manager will only be there at a certain part-time, then another manager kicks in. So you need to establish a certain courage with the employee to speak up, share information both ways, and actually taking charge of the conversation. If the manager is not doing it, the person who really needs to do is the employer, and they're not only providing feedback, but also demanding these conversations. So you want to have that as a doable thing, give them the authority to say, I want a conversation on my development. Please help me. And that keeps the system going as well if both sides are interested. This rhythm is one of the key things on that in order to keep going. It doesn't help if you have one or two. It needs to be every month, if in a perfect world, according to our numbers, in order to provide you that information so you don't have these gaps and you have information. As I said, it's a culture change. You have these HR can help support with tools, rhythm, the manager with the attitude and training to be able to prepare that, the employee in terms of engagement, but the reality, you need to get going. And the research industries and our case studies have shown by doing that, you have much more agile information from the company, and you also will benefit with more productivity and motivated, engaged employees.
I agree. I think it's very important to point out that don't wait, get started. There's nothing that's going to be perfect, excuse me, or set in stone that you have to do it this way. Have the conversation, learn from it, adjust, put some guidelines out there, and put people in a situation to be successful. I think a lot of that has happened this year, again, just by the nature of the world that we're in, that people are checking in more. They're having these conversations. I can have 30 minutes with you now. Let's talk about something and let's adjust. So it's that nice evolution, but again, it's thinking through that that change has to happen, but it doesn't have to be the super pretty or large change. You can make small changes to adapt. And that's probably what would win the race, right? Is these smaller changes to get us there. It doesn't mean you take everything at once and change everything and make so much change that your organization can't absorb it. It's more of making the smaller incremental changes, see how it feels, make a change, adjust. It's not anything that we have to say it's within these walls, right? It's a little bit more jello and it can morph and mold into something different, right? Give them some guidelines, but let them also use what works.
And it's a really good point. I mean, continuous performance management is not necessarily a top-down driven system like performance review. It's a value-driven system. You do it for a purpose to help employees help people. And people see that and feel that very quickly. As a result, if you start with a couple of managers and they're doing that, those people will see benefit. And other people will observe them and understand, they have much more aligned on their goals. They have much more motivated people. Why is that? So the system will spread over time and will be adopted, even if certain pockets don't adjust. But you also need to be aware that different industries and different departments, the way they work is quite different. I mean, from a product manager, from a marketing side, we deal with projects. This type of feedback and these conversations are quite natural to us. Other domains, for example, in the support domain, they keep running all day long. They just do tickets, smaller items, and they have very little time to do all of these conversations on long-term perspective. Help them a bit more, try them to understand how they can actually benefit from the day-to-day life and how they help their metrics. So just be a bit mindful that different departments, different people work slightly differently, and these continuous approach need to be adjusted to that, as well as to the individual industries, but taking the first step, introducing this idea in the company, setting the seed and seeing it grow over time, that's the key thing. And it will take time, but that's okay. You make smaller improvements and you don't have to roll it out like a big bang within a month. That's not the expectation, but it will benefit and grow. And as a company, you will see how worthy it is to actually keep going with the system. And keep going is the key here. Don't stop. Keep pushing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your insights today, and thank you for sharing this discussion with me. Everyone, please join us for our next topic, career development, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.